But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchesi crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country. You hear a lot about our work of defending the homeland and crushing violent crime. Well, this work is also representative of a colossal portion of the FBI's mandate to keep America safe and to keep our entertainment industry fair and secure. The men and women that are standing up here today worked tireless hours, days, months, and years. And the fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
For as long as athletic contests have existed, and for as long as money has existed, spectators have placed monetary wagers on the results of athletic contests. And for as long as people have been placing monetary wagers on the results of athletic contests, unscrupulous third parties have attempted to gain an edge by fixing the results of said contests. And it's always been well understood by the organizing bodies of sports leagues and competitions that if you want the paying customer to keep being a paying customer, then you need the credibility and the public trust that comes with the paying customer knowing your product is on the level. In the early decades of the 20th century, Major League Baseball and professional boxing were far and away the most popular spectator sports in the United States, but they were both very nearly ruined by match-fixing scandals, which stands to reason because nobody wants to pay their hard-earned money for a ticket to a contest that portrays itself as a legitimate sporting competition, but it's really a scripted entertainment product with a predetermined outcome. If I want something like that, I will just go to the pro wrestling show. But it used to be that if gamblers wanted to fix the result of a game in a team sport, they had to get to multiple people and they had to manipulate the actual final score of the game. But it's not like that anymore. Not in the internet age, not when there's an over-under on every single mundane detail of every player's stat line in every game, and any guy with a smartphone and a sportsbook account can place wagers on anything that happens on the field or on the court. And that gets us to the latest match-fixing scandal in pro sports. This one's in the NBA, as these things increasingly seem to be. And yesterday, FBI Director Kash Patel announced 31 arrests. And it looks like some of the biggest names in the league are already getting dragged into this one. It's Friday the 24th of October. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where the over-under on the number of words the host is going to flub in this episode is 2.3, so be sure and call your bookie and get down. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about the Supreme Court. For it was 7.5 years ago, the 15th of May, 2018, that the John Roberts Court, in a 6-3 decision, struck down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992, which was a law that said every state government, except Nevada, is barred from being in the sports gambling business. And when you see the date of 1992, that might lead you to ask, was this law a reaction to the Pete Rose scandal? Well, yes. Yes, it was. It often happens that Congress writes laws in response to big news stories, and this case was no different. And it was the commissioners of the big four pro sports leagues who were the big proponents of the law, since as we know, they are the ones with the biggest vested interest in the general public perceiving their product as a legitimate contest that is untainted by any association with gambling or match fixing. It seems kind of improbable that there were 70 years that went by between the Black Sox scandal and the Pete Rose scandal without Congress feeling the need to take any legislative action. But Congress had a decidedly different mentality in 1992 than it did in 1919. I guess Congress in 1919 was far too busy banning alcohol to waste their time on government-run sports books. But you don't need me to tell you what happened between 1992 and 2018. Yep, the internet happened, smartphones happened, online sports books happened, and state lotteries happened too. So by the 2010s, you had a lot of state governments saying, we sure do make a lot of revenue out of this lottery thing, so wouldn't it be just great if we could get into the sports gambling business too? Never mind the fact that it's pretty morally abominable for any government to be in any kind of gambling business, but in addition to not being a gambler, I am also rather old-fashioned about such things, I suppose. And it was the state governments and the online sports books that were the main drivers of the court battle against the constitutionality of the PASPA. Chris Christie, who was the governor of New Jersey at the time, he was the public face of the effort. And if there's anything we know about Chris Christie, it's that he never met a dollar or a jelly donut that he didn't like. Now, to their credit, the sports leagues were still just as much in favor of this law in 2018 as they were in 1992, and for the same reasons. This just isn't a set of floodgates that we want opened up, they said. But that's where the credit ends, sadly, because practically right from the moment the Supreme Court decision came down, the leagues all changed their tune. They said, shit, if everybody else is going to make a bunch of money off this thing, then we might as well make some money too. To paraphrase the immortal Bobby Knight, quote, if sports gambling is inevitable, we might as well lay back and enjoy it. And so the floodgates that the leagues had fought so hard to keep closed were well and truly opened up, and the NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, even the freaking NCAA, none of them waited more than 5 minutes to jump right into bed with the gamblers and the sports books, and that stuff has proceeded to infest every aspect of our sporting culture in the 7 years since. 39 states now have government-run sports books. California and Texas are the only big states that still don't, which is weird, because that's literally the only form of disgusting moral turpitude that the California state government hasn't enthusiastically embraced. If you watch a game on TV now, where the commercials all used to be for cars and beer, they are all for sports books and pharmaceutical drugs now. There are casinos now that actually have ownership stakes in sports franchises. We've got stadiums and arenas where casinos have bought the naming rights, some of which have actual state-run sports books inside the venue. We've even had sports books rent advertising space on the players' uniforms, which is a really outstanding look. Imagine if Lefty Williams went out to pitch Game 2 of the 1919 World Series with a sleeve patch that said, sponsored by Arnold Rothstein, because it's the same freaking thing. And concurrently, in the least surprising development in the history of the world, we have had an explosion in gambling and match-fixing scandals in the past 7 years. November 2019, Josh Shaw of the Arizona Cardinals receives an indefinite suspension for betting on his own team to lose. October 2021, Felipe Hernandez of Sporting KC is suspended indefinitely for gambling on MLS games. March 2022, Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons suspended for 1 year for betting on NFL games, including games involving his own team. December 2022, Miles Austin, receivers coach for the New York Jets, suspended for 1 year for violating the NFL's gambling policy. April 2023, Quintez Cephas and CJ Moore of the Detroit Lions and Shaka Toney of the Washington Redskins, indefinitely suspended for betting on NFL games. Jamison Williams and Stanley Berryhill, also of the Redskins, suspended 6 games for the same offense. June 2023, Isaiah Rodgers Sr. and Rashad Berry of the Indianapolis Colts, suspended 1 year for betting on NFL games. October 2023, Shane Pinto of the Ottawa Senators, suspended 41 games for violating the NHL's gambling policy. March 2024, Amit Patel, former employee of the Jacksonville Jaguars, pleads guilty to stealing $22 million from the team, which he spent placing bets on DraftKings and FanDuel. He is sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. Also March 2024, Ipe Mizuhara, translator for Shohei Ohtani, fired by the LA Dodgers for stealing more than $16 million from Ohtani's bank account to pay gambling debts. Also March 2024, Jonte Porter of the Toronto Raptors, banned for life by the NBA for disclosing confidential information to sports bettors, limiting his own participation in one or more games for betting purposes, and betting on NBA games. And you might remember that one. This Jonte Porter guy, he's just a bench player. Only plays around 10 minutes a game on average, but here's where you get into the thing with the little micro bets. Because this clip starts making the rounds where somebody on the Raptors misses a shot, the ball rebounds directly toward Jonte Porter, there's nobody else around him, but he avoids the ball like it is covered in nuclear radiation and bubonic plague. He lets it go out of bounds, and then all of a sudden he pretends he's got an eye injury and asks to be removed from the game. You know why? Because the over-under on the number of rebounds he was going to have in that particular game was 5.5, and that would have been his 6th rebound. And he had bet a bunch of money on the under. I can't remember quite how much, but I'm pretty sure it was a 6-figure amount, so that's fun. That's where we are now with sports and gambling. You can cash in and make a shitload of money just by being a below-average player and playing slightly worse than you normally do. And are we going to pretend Jonte Porter is the only guy doing this type of stuff? You might be that naive, but I am not. But this latest NBA gambling scandal, this one that broke yesterday, seems like it could potentially be far worse. We've already had one active head coach arrested, Chauncey Billups of the Portland Trail Blazers, and one ex-player, Rozier I believe is his name, who is supposedly LeBron James's best friend. We've got rigged poker games, x-ray tables, La Cosa Nostra, the whole 9 yards. So the way this scam worked, near as we can tell, is that the mob entices NBA players and coaches to participate in these high-stakes underground poker games, but the game is rigged. There's an x-ray camera under the table that can see what cards you're holding. There's trick cards, there's trick card shufflers. Some of the other players at the table are wearing special glasses where they can identify markers on certain cards. There's hidden cameras, there's signals being sent to a guy in another room who tells the plants how to bet. It all adds up to a pretty sophisticated operation. But the long and short of it is, the whole point of the game is for the unwitting Mark, the NBA player or coach, to lose the game badly and wind up owing a whole bunch of money to the mob. And the mob doesn't want you to actually pay back the money. The mob wants to now use the leverage that is created by the existence of that debt to make you do the things they want you to do. And according to what Director Patel was saying yesterday, if you're a coach, that means you share inside non-public information about injuries and matters of player status. If you're a player, it means the same kind of micro bet stuff that was going on with Jonte Porter. It means your mob contact calls you up before the game and says, look, the over-under on how many points you're going to score tonight is 11.5, and my boss, he just put down $1 million on the under, so you better not score no 12 points tonight, capiche? So now we've got some people, idiots I believe they're called, and I'm looking right at you, Stephen A. Smith, who say this whole investigation is Donald Trump getting revenge on the NBA? Like, revenge for what exactly? Well, who can say? But Director Patel was quick to point out that yes, Stephen A. Smith is an idiot, and he is talking directly out his ass, because it was Joe Biden's FBI that initiated this investigation nearly 3 years ago. But when you're an ESPN commentator, ESPN, which I believe stands for Everybody Sounds Perfectly Nutty, one doesn't allow little inconvenient truths to get in the way of an unhinged on-camera attack of Trump's psychosis complex. We will keep you posted on this story as it develops. Until then, I am done. That's all I've got. This has been Curmudgeon's Corner for Friday the 24th of October 2025. Thanks ever so much for watching. See you next time. Get off my lawn.